So I'm here to talk to you about the veterinary profession, and I think it's something that's very near and dear to all of our hearts. I have 2 dogs. I know that Jim had mentioned earlier today he has a lab, and Tom, you mentioned you have a chocolate lab, and even over lunch we were talking about dogs. So this is something pretty important, I think, to all of us. But in the United States, we typically think of veterinary medicine as preventive and emergency care for our dogs, cats, and horses, and this is very valuable to us. But just for the next 5 minutes, what I'd like you to do is just forget about that part. What I'd like to do is change your lens so that you see veterinary medicine from a whole different perspective. Now, I served for 6 years in the U.S. Army Medical Service Corps, and this is when I realized what the veterinary profession was doing to make an impact in human, animal, and environmental health. So this slide, as you can see, the star represents the veterinary profession, and here are some of the ways that veterinarians do make an impact, which lesser known, we don't usually think about. So according to the Food and Agricultural Organization, part of the UN, they did a study that looks at extreme poverty. They have about 1.4 billion people that fall into the category of extreme poverty. Out of that 1.4 billion, 1 billion are dependent or somehow living around the agriculture profession. And out of that, 0.5 billion are involved with livestock. So this is pretty important. When we look at the UN Millennium Goals, which are outlined in this chart on the left-hand side, where Ban Ki-moon has placed some of the most important factors that they look at, I've come up with some of the ideas that I have where the veterinary profession can make a big impact in helping reduce the poverty and malnutrition globally. The healthy animals equation here, obviously veterinarians are involved with healthy animals. So what this means is you increase the work that each animal can produce. So for some people, animals are their tractors. They're what's tilling the land. You increase the amount of product that each animal will make. So the amount of cheese, the amount of milk, the amount of meat. So this is very important in rural areas. And then, looking at the other side of the equation, what you're minusing out, the more productive each animal is, the less land usage that you need for getting the same amount of product. As well as looking at transmissible diseases, which a lot of times we think of as big deals for avian influenza, swine flu, tuberculosis. These are just a few of them. So I'd like to quickly talk about some of my experiences, which has helped develop my passion for veterinary medicine under this lens. This is a photo of me working in Cambodia, where this animal, this water buffalo, this is the tractor for the family. And simple measures such as deworming allows this animal to put on weight, work longer, live longer, and there's a reason it's called livestock, if you think about it. This is their bank account. This is their stock. This is incredibly important to them. So the management of their stock, their livestock, veterinary profession has a huge impact on what they have in their wealth. Another example, quickly, is in China, a school milk program. I worked with some dairies in China, and they have this program for rural children to provide milk during their school program. So this allows children to get, for some of them, their only meal of the day. It allows them to go to school and learn, as well as put on proper physical growth, which is important for them in order to go out, find a job, and be productive in an economic world. So this ties the idea together in some capacity, where we talked about the human, animal, environmental health from a public health perspective, and looking at the educational aspect, allowing children to go to school and have healthy nutrition so that they can learn and learn trades, focusing on economic growth, providing jobs in regions in agricultural and livestock development, and then finally leading to political stability, which without economic growth, this is something that we see, which you can see here, if it looks familiar. Why does this impact you? So take a look at these headlines and rethink what's currently happening in the world today. And as future business leaders, I challenge you that the next time you bring your pet to the veterinarian, think about the global impact that veterinarians are having in public health, economic, and political stability. Thank you.
Well, I've always been a nonconformist. When I was a young teenager, I'd head off on a Saturday afternoon after school sport to buy pigeons from Paddy's Markets at Redfern. And the funny thing is, it's actually right here at Carriageworks where I used to come. It used to be Paddy's, and they'd sell all different sorts of things, including these pigeons. And I'd head out on the bus and the train for the sole purpose of rescuing these birds from the cramped confines of the cages in which they were being sold from within the markets. And a lot of them were being sold as food to eat. And if not the markets, I'd head out to a pigeon fancier's place and buy some more exotic looking birds that were being bred to compete against one another in pigeon shows. And I guess what appealed to me was the idea of being able to train them to home and allow them to fly freely without the restrictions of the cages. And the idea of this was basically, it was an idea that made me feel good, but it wasn't at the expense of the pigeons either. And, it was generally when I was supposed to be studying or doing schoolwork, but I found it much more fascinating to build this flock of homing pigeons. And the whole process allowed for the noticing of different character traits and idiosyncrasies of the individual birds. It might be something you wouldn't even consider pigeons to have, but living with them in such close proximity and tending them on a day-to-day basis, I was able to notice this. I was also able to notice just how much poo pigeons are capable of doing within a confined space, which just so happened to be my parents' backyard. But they were always pretty supportive of my interests, and my dad had kept pigeons in his childhood and then again into his adult life during my childhood, so I guess they'd rubbed off on me. But by the time I started collecting the birds, Dad no longer had his pigeons, and I wanted to recreate the relationship he had with them and build this bird wonderland around me. And I didn't see anything wrong with my obsession. It was a distraction that I felt I could justify through what I believed to be a noble purpose. And, it was for a good cause and not at the expense of the pigeons. And, a sort of symbiotic relationship existed between us where I enjoyed them and they relaxed me, and they were able to live in an environment that I provided for them and breed and grow in a fairly uninhibited way. And, I guess it was this need. In a way, I was escaping my own reality by helping them escape theirs. And it was this need to escape that we both had in common. And in order, I guess, to reach our higher goal or potential, we both need to be set free to fly in our own direction. But obviously, it was not going to be something that I could rely on to support myself as a career. It just wasn't going to happen, or was it? Well, the irony is I still do it. And the trick was I just needed to be able to turn what I initially thought was this escape from reality and be able to accept it as an alternate one. And the thing is, I'm now 34 years old and I work as an avian behaviourist. And although there's not a great call to train a 200-strong flock of homing pigeons, there is a call to train people who keep companion parrots as pets in an attempt to better the lives of these animals living in captivity. And people sometimes say to me, when are you going to get a real job, mate? Or is this all you do? But honestly, I couldn't think of anything more real or rewarding than being able to affect the lives of these often misunderstood, highly intelligent creatures that have the potential to live for 80 years or more. Birds have helped me find my place in life, and I sort of feel it's my moral obligation to help them where I can. And to this day, I'll go to Bondi Junction, and those pigeons you see hobbling around the streets of Sydney, they've often got toes missing, or sometimes they've only got a stump to walk on. But I'll stop and try and help them and take the string off that's caught around their toes or whatnot, because I feel pigeons have been the roots in what I teach people, and I'll always have a strong admiration and connection to them for that reason. And the area in which I specialise as an avian behaviourist, it's loosely known as free flight, and it's basically training a captive bird or a companion bird to train to fly freely in an outdoor environment. And it's based on a bird's natural instincts to form a home range, and also their instincts, in the case of parrots, to form strong social bonds with one another. And it generally takes about 3 months to train a bird for free flight, providing I'm training a bird which I consider to be a blank canvas. It takes 1 month to establish a rapport with the bird. The second month, I like to build its confidence up in flying, and I'll do that in an indoor environment initially. And the third month is desensitising it to an outdoor environment in which I intend flying it in. And when I talk about a blank canvas, I mean a bird that hasn't been exposed to unnatural conditioned behaviours that are going to affect its overall, being able to go out and fly in an outdoor environment. And such things that would affect that would be things like over-socialising with humans, or the development of anxieties that they may have formed through an inability to fly. And that's often the case with companion parrots, because they're often bought at a crucial developmental time in their life with already clipped wings, and this becomes the accepted way of keeping them without question. But I believe for a bird to develop into both a physically and mentally well-balanced creature, it needs to be able to act upon these instincts in a natural way as possible. And flight's often one of these neglected instincts. But through flight, a bird's able to develop confidence, self-confidence, and is able to express itself amongst a whole lot of other things. But I like to call free flight, I like to call it thinking outside of the cage, because one, it's exactly that. I'm taking birds outside into an outdoor environment and I'm flying them. And also it challenges the mainstream way of keeping companion parrots. And for me, thinking outside of the cage, it's allowed me to tap into this other dimension of, in a way of keeping birds, because, if I've been able to develop these connections with birds that I would have otherwise not have been able to make if I had gone down the straight and narrow, I suppose. But, it's when birds don't have the ability to access these natural instincts in a natural way that things can often take an irreversible turn for the worst, and they can develop psychological disorders that we often see as inappropriate forms of behaviour, but they're actually appropriate forms of behaviour in response to the inappropriate ways in which we've kept them. Such things as excessive screeching, they may even self-mutilate, which involves pulling all their feathers out. And the other thing they do is aggressive biting. But for that reason, we really need to embrace flight and all the instincts that in essence make up a bird. Birds in captivity develop their instincts just as they would if they were in the wild, and it's important to be aware of this and embrace it so that we're not going to cause damage to an animal that we consider to be a companion. I recently finished a job that involved training a communal flock of free flight birds where there were 30 macaws, 15 eclectus parrots, which now breed in a wild environment and then bring their babies back to the aviary. There's 8 red-tailed black cockatoos, along with 5 yellow-tailed black cockatoos, 2 Amazon parrots, amongst several other species of parrots. And it's a unique situation that's never been done before, and it gives me great satisfaction in knowing I've been able to provide these birds with this lifestyle, and they're able to develop as birds in their own right. They're let out from the aviary first thing in the morning, they return home to roost of an evening. But working with birds in an outdoor environment, it brings me in touch with the natural world, which I find is important in this day and age, and it helps me gain perspective. I need to be in tune with that natural world in order to do what I do. And I need to know of predators in the area, such as birds of prey and their natural food source in that area, and how the birds that I train will be affected once in that area. And I'd also need to be aware of weather patterns, how they might affect a bird. And I need to be able to do all this as part of the process in assessing the suitability of the environment in which to fly these birds. And I find it very real and sometimes more tangible than what's often considered to be the real world, because it can mean the difference between life and death for these, in the decisions I make for these birds. And I find that very grounding. But I needed to have the confidence to embark on this project and take these calculated risks with these birds that I'd become so attached to. And these birds had meant a lot to me. And the people that owned these birds also had to have the confidence in me. My time on the project's now ended, but I know the birds still fly free, and I can only hope that the people that own this marvellous collection continue to do the right thing by them. but it's this project that's inspired me to embark on my latest project with Free Flight, and that's the training of a blue and gold macaw named Mango. And Mango's here with us today. So I'd just like to introduce you. Mango. Come on, girl. Come and say hi. Come on. Don't be shy. Come on, Mango. Come on. Come on. Come have a cookie. Come on, Mango. Come on, Mango. Come on. Good girl. Come on. Beautiful. That's the way. Yeah, she loves the shortbread bickies. First thing in the morning normally. It's been a bit of a wait today. But, you know, with Mango, unlike the flock of birds on the property, which I trained, which was a fairly isolated property, I mean, I've trained her in suburbia, and she's a one-off. She's an initial flock member, and I intend getting more when I've saved up enough money, but it's had an effect on her social habits and her inclination to want to socialise with people, which isn't hard to do in suburbia, especially considering we live 2 doors away from the local park. And when Mango flies, apparently the local vets get 20 calls a week saying there's an escaped macaw flying around Bronte. But anyway, yeah. Oh, it's okay. You want to play, you want to eat cookie. There you go. And anyway, so it engages conversation with these people. And Mango's got an innate attraction to kids. And I'm not sure if it's the screams and high-pitched calls, but she's fascinated by them. It could be the fact that the local school kids have a blue and yellow uniform. So she might think they're like a little flock of macaws. But whatever it is, it engages this interaction. And they'll often ask me, you know, has she escaped? And what if you don't get her back? And I get great joy in being able to tell them that, you know, she lives an alternate lifestyle, and you know, and they love it. But the whole thing is, she's living this lifestyle, and I guess when they say to me, has she escaped? I guess in a sense she has escaped. She's escaped sort of a system of preconceived ideas, and in doing so, with a bit of luck, she may have just inspired them into thinking outside of the cage. Anyway, thank you very much.
I'm a biologist. The one thing that fascinates me more than any other is the human condition. What does it mean to be human? What sets us apart from other animals? In order to understand how humans are different, we first have to understand how we're the same. Over the years, we've seen the traits that we believe made us unique fall one by one. Other animals use tools. Other animals have culture. Today, I'd like to add another item to this list: friendship. I study monkeys with the aim of understanding their social lives. I'd like to convince you not only that monkeys and other animals have friends, but that by understanding these friendships in other animals, we can gain a greater understanding of ourselves. So I think it's apparent now more than ever in our history that we live in a social world. So we have social media sites that make us acutely aware of how connected we are to others, and we have social scientists telling us that the more integrated we are in society, the healthier and happier that we'll be. But we aren't alone in our friendly dispositions. So monkeys like these rhesus macaques live in groups, with many individuals spending their entire lives, which can be upwards of 25 years together. Each of these individuals is friends with a small number of their group mates. These friends spend time together, they eat together, they groom each other, and they support each other in fights. Social bonds like these have been documented in other primates, so in chimpanzees, in baboons, and in other types of animals like hyenas and dolphins. Now, what have these relationships in animals taught us about ourselves? Most importantly, they've shown us that friendship is a product of natural selection. So friendship evolved. It's not a learned behavior or a cultural fabrication. And we know this because other primates have friends, which tells us that our common ancestor more likely than not had friends too. In addition, we know something evolved if it influences an individual's ability to survive and to reproduce. This is because those who are best at surviving and reproducing are selected by nature for those winning characteristics that they have to give rise to future generations. Just so happens when you compare individual monkeys, the ones with the strongest friendships live the longest and have the most babies. So friendship helps monkeys survive and reproduce. We can infer from this that friendship helps humans survive and reproduce too. So human friendship evolved. This leaves us with a very big question. Friendship evolved, but why? What purpose does it serve? To begin to answer this question, I ask you to consider the following. An acquaintance lends you $5. I think most people agree they feel the urgency to pay this kind of debt back pretty quickly. Now, instead of an acquaintance, imagine the money comes from a friend of yours. The urgency you feel to repay them is reduced, and your friend might suggest you don't pay them back at all. Why might this be? I suggest this is because that while the purpose of friendship is about providing each other help and support, that the currency on which this is based and the time scale on which it occurs is grander than some small $5 size favors. It might seem a bit cold and calculated to think about our friends in this way, but remember what animals have taught us. Other animals have shown us that friendship is about survival. Our friends help us to survive. And the flip side of that is that we help them to survive too. So recognizing that it's deeply rooted in our evolutionary history for friends to help each other live healthy, successful lives isn't a cold sentiment at all. But it should instead make us appreciate and nurture our friendships all the more. Thank you.